The following podcast is intended for people who are intent on growing their business. And welcome to Innovate Marketing, where we are bringing you interviews with the people that are making waves in the world of marketing, branding, and business growth. I'm your host, Sean P. Neal, and we are brought to you by mypodcast.media. So if you're a brand and you're considering podcasting or even revamping an existing podcast, make sure you visit mypodcast.media. Now, we've got a great show for you today, so without further ado, let's get into it. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm super excited for this interview. We're going to be talking to Rich and Beth Kahn. They are the co-founders of Anura Solutions. Now, you may remember Rich and Beth Kahn from the Innovate Marketing Daily Show. We had featured them because their company, Anura Solutions, has found its place on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies for 2023. So we're going to talk a little bit about, first of all, what they do, which is ad fraud solutions. So marketers, pay attention to this one. Very important information that they've got for you on that. We're also going to talk about the dynamics of being a husband and wife co-founder team. And then we're going to get into how they have managed to build this inclusive workplace culture that nurtures all of the growth of all of the employees and really keeps retention high and turnover low. So I'm excited to get into this. Before we do, let's learn a little bit more about Rich and Beth. Husband and wife team Rich and Beth Kahn are the proud co-founders of Anura, an ad fraud solution designed to improve campaign performance by accurately exposing bots, malware, and human fraud. With more than 2 decades of experience in running digital marketing companies, including a company that made the Inc. 5000 list 5 years in a row, Rich and Beth have developed an extensive understanding of digital marketing and how to deal with ad fraud. In addition to their roles within Anura, Rich and Beth are the proud parents of 4. I found out through all the channels of the internet that you two were high school sweethearts.
Correct.
How do high school sweethearts end up owning 2 businesses together?
Yep.
A few businesses, still, actually.
How many?
A few. We've done a couple of ventures together.
Okay. So how does this happen? And then in a minute, we're going to dive into maybe what's the secret to keeping it moving fast and happy. But how did that all start for you guys?
Beth, you want to start?
So, sure. We started Ezenga together over 20 years ago because Rich was working another business and he was working practically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was driving me crazy that we weren't reaping the benefits of him working so hard. So I one day said to him, we should start this on our own. He says, okay. I said, all right. He says, let's do it. And then it was like, well, how do I make a website? And then he put the website together. It was like, well, how do we get advertisers? And then he went and put the advertisers together. So it was mostly Rich starting.
Let's put it this way. She dragged me into it.
Yeah.
Because I was in another company, another business that I had started that was in the process of being groomed to be sold. So I wanted to have my focus there, but she had a good idea of let's starting something else. So initially we took $5,000 out of our personal checking, put it into a business account. I said, okay, start up the company. And like she said, every step of the way, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? What do we do with this? What do we do with that? So she dragged me into the business, thankfully. And that's how we got our first big internet business together off the ground.
Yeah. And so once you kind of, broach that topic of being business partners as well as, domestic partners, how do you separate the two? How do you go from working in the office all day to now we have to deal with family matters and keep those separate?
You don't.
The only place, the only place the business can't be, sorry, Homer, is in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no separation.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes
So
sense.
it's like, the average couple gets home from work, and what do you do? What'd you do at work today? We do the same thing because we work on opposite ends of the office. So there's times where we see each other for lunch, and that's about it. And so I want to find out with all the departments that she's running. She wants to find out what's going on with the departments I'm running. So we still talk about work that way. But we always tell people it's like, a couple that works together either grows together or grows apart.
Sure.
We just happen to luckily grow together. And I couldn't imagine working without her.
See, I still love this guy.
Brownie points.
35 years, I still love this guy, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I love your story there. So, which one of you handles kind of the day to day, and which one of you is the because you're involved in ad fraud? Which one of you is kind of the uh, more in depth? This is what's going on for our customers.
I typically focus on the development of the software since I was the original developer on the software
Okay,
and the sales side. And Beth is pretty much running a lot of the pretty much rest of the company. So she'll do the day to day finance, operations, human resources, marketing. So she basically does all that.
lots of hats to wear, huh, Beth?
Yeah.
Starting up a business, we wear a lot of hats. I think any entrepreneur has to do that because A, you have no money when you're trying to start this business and you're trying to get so much accomplished. But, over the years, we've kind of learned what lanes we do best in, you know, and every once in a while, when one of us tries to cross the other lane, it's usually a quick argument and a get back in your lane, you know, I'm
Sure.
right or you're wrong and this is why. But we're able to complement each other. Most couples I don't think could stay together with all the stress of running businesses. But we've been dating since we were 15 and we raised 4 kids together. There's been a lot of stresses inside and outside the office. So for us, you have a choice to make. You work at it on both the business and your marriage, or something else takes focus. For us, it's always family first, family always. It's the way I was raised, that your family is first. So, Rich and I are able to, I think we've always been able to separate when we have to the emotions of running a business. Most important, it's always togetherness, family.
But I think
Right.
what part of that is one of the things one of our family members told us one time is that he was working in the auto industry, and they work like 12-hour days, 7 days a week, every holiday. So like he never saw his kids as they were growing up. He says, so whatever you do, you want to make sure you make time for that. So I always took that to heart. And as we grew the business, we always made sure we were at every practice. I was the father that was on all the trips as chaperone. The two of us would coach different teams. So we always made, now we, of course, we would work until 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night on the business, but we made the time in our business available so that we would miss all the important stuff for the kids.
Yeah, and I think that's important because one of the things that maybe a misnomer from our past is work life balance, and it may be more work life integration. And I think that that's what you two are kind of having a conversation about here. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny when people say that they want to have a work life balance, but you have to have that work in there, So we figure out a way to make it work for our family. It's not going to work everybody like this. Not everybody can do this, but this is what works for our family, And building the business was always important to us to be able to provide and take advantage of being a business owner and, being able to come and go, quote unquote, as we please, even though Rich and I laugh about that. I don't think we've ever come and gone as we've pleased. Always been repercussions.
It just feels like I've got, I know other people that have businesses, and they're like, I'm like, oh, how often are you at the office? A couple hours a week. I'm like, it doesn't compute. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand how this is your business, this is your livelihood. Like, how come you're not there?
Right.
You know, and it would be nice to get there one day, but even if we got there, I don't know if we could let go.
I think we would be bored. I don't know what we would do. I say
Yeah.
that now. That's because we have no grandchildren yet. But I don't know what we would do, you
When the
know.
grandchildren come, we'll have plenty to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think that this is a great place to dive off because one of the things I saw on one of your other businesses was you referred to, or it was referred on the website as uh, introducing the parents of the company, which was you two. Um, and I want to talk about that for a minute because that really, I think, speaks heavily to your leadership and your values when it comes to leadership. That you kind of refer to these businesses as equally important as being one of your children. Um, can you kind of talk about that for a minute? And Rich, I'll start with you, and then Beth. I just want to know a little bit more about what that's does for the culture of the business and the people that are working there with you when you really are able to look at this as family and embrace it as something that means that much to you.
Well, I'll give you an example, an off the wall example. When Beth and I disagree, we have an office of about 8,000 square feet. People know. And then the common phrase going around the office is mom and dad are having a fight. So even though we're not the oldest people in the company, we're still referred to as mom and dad in the company, running the company. So um, yeah, it's we want a culture of like we have certain perks and stuff like that that focus around culture. Like we have somebody who's got a young child who's in daycare, and all of a sudden there's a problem with daycare. All of a sudden they're having coughing, and he's this individual was kind of tossed because in his other positions, when stuff like that came up and he had to leave the office, you know, he got reprimanded or fired because of it. In our company, we're like, no, 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 go take care of your daughter. You
Right.
know, business will be here when you get back. Just go do what you got to do and then come back. And it's we cultivate that. Now we don't. There's the once in a while situations that pop up versus every once in a while we get an employee here who thinks they should be off twice a week. That's a different scenario, right? But we want to basically, like, if it was my child that was sick at daycare, I'm leaving, right? So my employees in the same situation. They have time off and everything else to account for it, but don't worry about, like, our time off policies are you can take an hour off if you need. So this way, if you had to run to a doctor's appointment, you had to run to go take care of your child, or you want to go to the parent teacher conference at 3 in the afternoon, we account for that, we allow for that. And if they're out of time, let go.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. So there's that fine line between the employees that take advantage versus the employees that appreciate stuff like that, because a lot of our vacation schedule was built off of the school schedule, because
For
we wanted
sure.
to be home with the kids because the kids were home, and we didn't want to leave the kids home by themselves all day. So we actually, our schedule was always based on a school calendar. So we have quite a few holidays off that most businesses don't, just because that's when kids are usually home. So it's kind of how we promote it within the company, is through the perks and through our actions. We pretty much promote the family first motto in the company.
Yeah, I think it's important to culture is a big thing here. So we have core values and we live by our culture. So we hire to our core values and what we tell people in our culture is true. What you see is what you get. So I always tell everyone that you have to love where you work. Now you don't have to love it every day, but you're leaving your life to come work here. So you have to like where you work. And when you come here, I don't think people need to shut off what's going on outside their lives. Like, and that's, I think, the aspect of the mom and dad, because being a parent of, young adults at this point, and adults, it's always like, well, what's going on at home? So, like, we hear when, kids are sick, kids are causing a problem, uh, problems in the relationships, older adults having problems, dating, we hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're able to be supportive that it's okay to come into work. You're having a bad morning because, your kids got off of school late, the dog, destroyed
Yes.
something. Like, come in and tell us about it, and then we'll help you kind of just take a deep breath and then let's get to work, you know, because when you get home, the mess the dog made is still going to be there. Your kids are still going to need your attention, but we still need you to work. So we kind of have it like, be authentic, be who you are. It's okay to share. Sometimes it's easier to come into the office and be like, oh my God, the school bus was late. I got a flat tire. I ran out of gas.
Yeah.
this, and this. My mother-in-law called. She needs X, Y, and Z, and I'm spent. I don't know what to do. And I think that's how we treat the employees. We're very personal. We bring the employees to our house. We go swimming. We have mental health days, we call them, where everyone comes to work and it's like, you know what? Let's just go bowling today. Like, let's just do something. Let's go to a movie. Let's go have a barbecue. Let's just go sit in the pool. Let's just everybody just take that day together. And you know, it works for some employees. It doesn't work for others, but it's the way I would want to be treated. So that's how basically we treat our employees.
Yeah. Well, and I think with that said, even if that's not your style as an employee, to know that you have the option is, it's freeing. It gives you that space. No, I'm going to keep working today, but gosh, if I did want to take that, I've got it. I think
Right.
that speaks volumes. Um, so that culture, obviously, we talk about retention and how people connect with their employers. Um, have you had same employees? Do you have good retention with that? Do you feel?
We have. I mean, the first company we started was in 2000
3.
2003. And our second employee that we hired was with us up until a couple of years ago. So he
Wow,
was with us for 14 years, left, went to another company, found out he was miserable, called us back, and now he runs a San Antonio office for us.
The open. Mhm.
Our chief product officer has been with us for 13 years. Our head
Uh,
of IT has been with us
Compliance,
for 12 years, 13 years.
14 years
Yeah. We've had several employees that have left,
and come
didn't like
back.
it, came back. So our average tenure, and we have a lot of new people because we're growing again, um, as this company is hitting certain milestones. But I think our average tenure is probably 6 or 7 years based on
that's
the
really
average.
good.
So for a startup, it's not bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So let's dive into, because what you cover in the business is an incredibly wide topic when we talk about ad fraud. Um, and I don't know that people necessarily understand what is all contained in that umbrella. So can you just, either one of you, whoever wants to grab this, just kind of give us an overview of what ad fraud looks like, and kind of what the day-to-day things that people are encountering that they may not be aware of when it comes to ad fraud.
It's funny because when you bring up the word ad fraud, a lot of people don't know, what ad fraud is, and that's understandable. So when you talk about fraud, they think they know what it is, but there's so many different levels of fraud. And I know because Beth and I were running our Google advertising campaign, and if you advertise in the word fraud, it's like marriage fraud, housing fraud, name fraud. I mean, there's so many different kinds of fraud out there. It's crazy. We talk about specializing in ad fraud, which is basically if you're online and you're spending money through any digital marketing channel, affiliates, email marketing, ping posts, lead generation, display, clicks, Google, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter where. There's fraud there. On average, $1 in $4 spent on advertising is lost to fraud.
Wow.
So, just to give you a little scale, last year as a global society, we tipped over $500 billion in digital marketing spend. And it's been estimated that over $100 billion was lost last year to ad fraud. So that's the area that we talk about and we focus on because it makes sense, right? If you're losing $50,000 a month to ad fraud and you can solve that for a few bucks, it's a very worthwhile product to get. But our software does a lot more than that. It really answers one simple question: is the visitor that's interacting with my site, my app, my mobile device real or fake? And they got to know that in real time, and it's got to be accurate. And based on that, we can actually plug into a lot of different scenarios. But the one that makes the most sense initially is the advertising fraud. But we protect gaming companies, sweepstakes companies. We protect opinion companies like survey companies. It all depends on what the intelligence they need and when they need.
Yeah, and we're talking a big category here. So just pulling out of the bucket, ad fraud might look like a Google pay-per-click ad that I'm seeing an unrealistic uptick of clicks. And on my side, I'm looking at that data and I'm going, okay, we're getting good response from our keywords. On your side, you're looking at that and saying, are those authentic? Is that a fair way to wrap that up?
Yeah.
I think
So
you're missing one step of that. You're seeing an increase in clicks and you're thinking your campaign is working, but at the real end of the day, are you converting?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what you're seeing. We're able to see where those clicks are coming from and is it a real person or not clicking on your ad.
Right.
So think of it this way. Let's say if you had, and since you're using Google, and that's one of the biggest ones out there, let's stick with Google, right? Let's say you're using Google and you're using Google search, which has got about an 8 to 10% fraud rate. So let's say 90% of your campaign is reaching real people. It's got a certain conversion value, whatever that it might be a 2% conversion value, right? Meanwhile, the other 10% of those visitors that are coming to your site are bots or human fraud farms, and they're never going to convert, right? So that really just lowered your ROI across your 100% of your spend. Now imagine if you can identify accurately that 10% of the market, eliminate it so that your budget is going to real people. It's going to give you a bump in conversions and increase your ROAS.
Wow. So yeah, incredible. And incredible when you talk, it's incredible for the small business owner, but when you start to get into large, large ad spending, that is saving millions, I would assume, annually.
Didn't we just figured out, I thought I came up with a number. Um, we actually figured out a number roughly how much we were saving customers a year. It was pretty substantial. I want to say it was in the billions. Based on our client base, based on what we're identifying fraud, based on average numbers and stuff like that, we were able to come up with some numbers, and it was pretty staggering how much fraud we were able to identify and help customers eliminate. But yeah, like you have I don't know what the average client in the market landscape at that $500 billion a year is spending. It's probably a stat we should probably pick up on. But you know, a lot of clients are spending 50, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million a month in marketing. And if you just understand that depending on the channel they're buying, if the average is 25%, how much money they're losing and how much of a big impact that can make to the bottom line.
Yeah. I think people miss the intangible aspect of it, like your brand reputation. We always tell people it takes years to build up your reputation, right? Um, it'll take seconds to destroy it. The internet never forgets. So if people are writing things, if you're making these phone calls and people didn't consent to having these phone calls, eventually people are going to start complaining,
Right.
and bad news spreads fast. It's like a wildfire. And the other things I don't think people take into consideration with fraud, they just think of like, the immediate effect, like, I'm losing 25% to ad fraud. But what about hiring a salesperson and that salesperson is calling leads or calling someone or reaching out and not getting anybody or getting told, I didn't fill this form out, not getting person, not getting the right phone number? What does that do morally and mentally on salespeople? They're going to leave.
Right.
And as a business owner, we know that hiring an employee is far more expensive to hire, train, and replace than it is to
Retain.
maintain, right, and keep happy. And I don't think that a lot of people they think of ad fraud, they don't even think of those aspects of it. Think of the intangible aspects of it, your employees and your reputation alone.
Yeah, but as you're talking, I mean, it's very clear that this impacts so many different points in the business. Um, I want to talk a little bit about kind of how you go about staying on top of all of the fraud that's happening, because I know, we've got AI. I was just on the site, I'm seeing blogs about AI and things that are happening in that world. How are you able to stay up on everything that's happening and keep that curtailed as we, go into the future so that your clients can just rest assured that, things are being taken care of?
Sure. So first off, we've been developing this software longer than I think anybody else in the industry. We've started the original project in 2005. I wrote the first couple of versions of it. and started a process because we had another company we were trying to protect our own traffic, and nothing existed at the time. Um, so I developed a process using a rudimentary machine learning algorithm that basically watches the internet, and watches the internet that we have access to based on all the traffic that we have coming into. And at our heyday, I think we had like three or our heydays, billions of visitors a day that we're able to see.
Wow.
So what happens is when fraud first comes out, what we have, at least the way we've seen it, they go and test their solution out in different areas. And as they test their stuff, it's small number of clicks, maybe 1,000 clicks, 2,000 clicks, very small amount. Our machine learning, if it comes across our network anywhere that we have access to, picks up on that. It's a red flag to our engineering team. Our engineering team jumps on it right away, identifies what it is. If it's something that we've already protecting against, they can mark it in the machine learning and say, okay, we know what this is. It's good. If it's something new, then they can investigate, come up with an update or a rule or heuristic for it, roll it out, and get it out before it becomes a major impact. Because again, a lot of these fraudsters are very intelligent. You got intelligent people, and you've got tens of thousands of them around the globe trying to defeat all the systems that exist out in the marketplace. When we catch what they're doing, we can stay ahead of them by basically catching it early before it becomes a massive problem. And then that's how we can stay on top of it. We also get a lot of feedback from our clients. Clients give us huge feedback because look at it this way. I use one of our clients. They're a gaming company, and so what happens is we're there to protect their login. They want to make sure bots and human fraud firms are not logging into their system for a variety of reasons, but they want to protect that login. We get to see that visitor for a split second. They come in, they go to log in, hit go, and we have to know right then and there are they real or fake. Meanwhile, the gaming company has all this gameplay, all this user behavior, all this rich data behind the scenes. Our data has to be able to capture that without having access to all that data. So sometimes, maybe something new is starting to pop up. We might get some insight from that client to say, hey, something new's popping up. I'm not sure what it is. Here's some information. And then our team goes to town, digs there to see if that's something new that might be popping up. So we have a variety, and those are just two examples of how we look at new levels of fraud coming into the market and how they end up on the chief product officer's desk for review.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Beth, I want to pay some acknowledgement to some of the things that you were talking about there with, a lot of brand reputation and things like that we, don't necessarily think about. Um, as you look into the future and you get your crystal ball, your globe out, um, what kind of things can brands do proactively now that will help protect that identity, that brand affinity in the future? In other words, like connecting to a company like yours and being able to say, we are protected by, we are, what can they do to make sure that they're ensuring that their brand reputation is secure as they go into their future?
Well, I think the most important thing for any company um, is to be proactive and be engaged. So, when people give a good review, acknowledge that you received the review online. When people give a bad review, or, if you send out a survey and they're complaining about something, get on it. Find out what the problem is. Don't just take it and then internally say, okay, how do we fix this? Get in contact with the person who made the comment or who is speaking and say, well, what is it? What is the reason that you're having this complaint and what can we do better? And go and fix it. So stand behind what you say. I don't think there's anything you could do because there's always going to be evil people in the world and people, who want to make you feel better. And I don't think I can say this on a podcast, but people are very brave behind their keyboard. I think I'll put
That's
it
the
that
best way to
way.
say it. I
Yes.
know where you're going with that.
Yes. So we always laugh because it's very easy to type something up and to say that, but it's a lot harder to face somebody or to talk to somebody and say, "Listen, I have a problem with this because," so when I think for any company, it's proactive to stay in contact with their clients and their potential clients, answer questions, stay engaged, monitor your brand, monitor your social sites, monitor the internet of what's coming out. And quite honestly, if you see it and don't react to everything, find out why someone would make a comment, so that's basically my thing. I mean, we're never going to stay ahead of this. I know that that freaks people out. AI is coming out there, and it's faster than any human could prevent. So I think you have to ride the wave with it.
Yes.
So, just stay involved, stay engaged, and stand behind what you say. Do what you say what you mean, you know. That's
Yeah.
basically my take on it.
Well, and I really appreciate the fact that Anura, with that security that you're able to provide, we know that we're addressing actual complaints. We're addressing actual things, not, a bot generated whatever that at the end of the day distracts us, takes time and money away from, actually addressing real issues. So I think that that's important to note as well. Um, I would love to get a glimpse into the future with both of you. Uh, and I'll take one or both on or off the air responses for this, but where do you see Anura and maybe both of you going in the next 5 years? What are the big plans on the horizon? What kind of things can we expect from you two?
Well, we're going to focus. We're just in a growth mode, and our product is very educational because a lot of marketers might turn around and look at their data and go, something's going on. They don't right away jump to Google and say, I need an ad fraud solution. In fact, the word ad fraud is searched, I think it's 100 times a month on Google. So that's not the
Wow.
term that they use. So you have to be creative and like trying to, when we're trying to find people that are having these problems, we have to understand the problems that they're running into in order to be able to, apply that to our Google campaigns and our advertising campaigns. But as we continue to educate the market, I read a report that said by, I think it's 2030, the ad fraud detection market will be a $9 billion market cap. So we're nowhere near that yet. So there's huge amount of growth and potential because there are a lot. I always talk about this when we talk to customers that there's probably 75 to 100 companies out in the marketplace that do some type of fraud detection right now. What I tell clients to look for is if you're big in the advertising space, you look at the MRC, which is the Media Rating Council. About 12 years ago, they actually understood the basics of the ad fraud detection market, and they created a set of standards which they update every quarter. And there's only 8 companies that are certified to follow those standards. So when we talk about the education portion, we're trying to educate people on best practices, how to do things the right way, because there are some competitors in the marketplace that when they flip a switch, they're blocking a good percentage of real people. So, in fact, I'll give you a quick story on that. I know it's a little bit on tangent, but I talk on tangents. This is how I am. We have one of our marketing people was trying to buy something off of a fashion site. I think it was a fashion site. And she got to the end and she was trying to submit the order and it wouldn't take the order. And she believes, and I bet she's right, some type of fraud detection that they were using mismarked her as fraudulent. So she couldn't buy the object. She tried a couple different ways and couldn't do it. Then she went to the competitor and bought the product. So for us,
Well,
it's really, in order for our growth to happen over the next, say, 4 or 5 years, we have to amp up our education. So Beth has been running the marketing team. And recently we hired Sherry, which is our director of marketing, to focus on that education, focus on the market education that we can so that we can grow as a company. But for us, I see a lot of growth. 5 years for us is hard to look at. We're a bootstrap company. We've been bootstrapping for the last 20 years together. So what we look at is, day to day, week to week, month to month, quarter by quarter,
yes.
predicting 5 years out. Not something we normally do.
Rich is trying to tell you a polite way because he doesn't want to say this. Where do we see ourselves in 5 years? Rich, get on the damn highway. He's always got to take a detour. We would like to be acquired or maybe pull on some funding so that we are a household name. That if anyone's going to advertise on the internet, they know that they need an ad fraud solution, and we want to be that ad fraud solution.
Right.
And that is what our goal is. We've doubled in size last year. We grew 72% last year. We're on trajectory to grow 100% this year. We'll probably double our employees again by next year. And, we're going to start I don't want to say passing the torch over, but relying on more people to get it done, because more people means going further.
More work.
Personally, we are hoping for the grandbabies, and I don't know how many more times I could say that, but I expect a bundle of joy to be in our arms by
This time next year.
summer. Yeah. So,
So if any of your children are listening right now,
oh, do you see my empty picture frames? Those
uh,
are for my future grandbabies.
there you go.
The kids got moved, but
See, I'm still focusing on the ones we have right over here.
that's our 25th. Those aren't our kids, you know.
Those
But
are
yeah.
cool.
Well, there are kids in the pictures, but that was our wedding anniversary. There's no more babies coming from us.
No,
You know,
the baby factory is closed.
Baby factory has shut down.
Well, I'll tell you what, I definitely will make sure that we plug if any of the kids are listening. I'm doing it right now. You just heard what mom said, so
Right. Yeah. Get on
get
that
busy.
for us.
Uh,
Oh, they all know.
you two are an absolute pleasure to talk to. I appreciate what you've done, and I appreciate the work that you do. We oftentimes businesses exist to make money. Some businesses I can't talk. Some businesses exist to make money and have a mission, and I think you fall into that category. And yours is an important mission because a lot of other companies and people are relying on you to help keep you safe out there. So I want to thank you both for the work you're doing and for being guests on this show today. Hopefully we can come back and connect again soon. So
Appreciate
All
it.
right. Awesome.
all
Thank
right.
you.